Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. I'm Jet. That handsome gentleman across from me virtually is Sap or John Sapichetti, whatever you want to call him. Sap, do you have a nickname that people would prefer outside of Sap? Did anybody ever call you something?
No, mostly Sap, and I like that actually. There's obviously family members don't call me Sap. I'm the youngest of the family, so it's usually John or Johnny. I don't like Johnny, but obviously if my sister or brother call me Johnny, I'm fine with that.
What's wrong with Johnny? Johnny Flynn?
I don't like it.
Johnny Carson?
Yeah, no, I did not know that, Johnny Carson. But I like Sap among friends. It's something I have always been called, and I embrace it. So Sap is just fine.
Okay, Sap it is. I knew that, but I wanted our dedicated viewers to know that they could feel comfortable calling you Sap. They don't have to call you Mr. Sapichetti. As I know a lot of people, that's what very common on Twitter. People just say, Mr. Sapichetti, what do you think about this or that? They're very polite.
That's when they think I'm old. Yeah, they think I'm old.
So I teased this in our last podcast because it was very Celtic-centric, but we're not going to go there today. Thank God. I don't want to talk about the Celtics anymore. It's a mess. We're going to talk about something the NBA does fantastically well, which is social media feuds. And I'm not talking about the Kardashians and Tristan Thompson and that sort of social media feud where it's sort of fake and, made for cameras. I'm talking about some real life bad blood between a comedian and one of the best NBA players in the history of the sport. That's right. Michael Rapaport, former employee of Barstool Sports, current stand-up comedian, I guess. He's on shows too. I guess
he's not funny.
Comedian's a good catch-all, right?
I guess so, but he's not funny enough to be a comedian.
Versus Kevin Durant.
To be an actor.
Him and Kevin Durant, they have some serious social media beef, Sap. Is this a feud that before these DMs that Rapaport released to the public came out, is this a feud you had any idea? Was this on your radar screen?
No, the only feud I know that Michael Rapaport has had in the NBA is with LeBron James. He claims to have been friendly with LeBron and then said LeBron snubbed him at some point. So now he goes on all these shows. He's on Fox Sports 1 a lot. Yeah, LeBron's kind of busy doing other things besides dealing with Michael Rapaport, who I think is like one of the least talented guys out there. He also looks like Brian Scalabrine, Pastor Scalabrine's older brother. A guy who tries to put out a vibe that he grew up in the mean streets in New York. His dad was an executive at a major radio station. His mother was a radio personality. He comes from affluence. He did not grow up on the mean streets of New York the same way that David Portnoy did not grow up on the mean streets either in northeastern Massachusetts. He grew up in Swampscott. His dad was an attorney. And I know Portnoy and Rapaport have had their feuds, but I at least really admire Portnoy for the point that he took nothing and made it into something. Rapaport is like famous for being famous. Like he's really not a good actor. He's been in a lot of movies. I think he sucks as an actor. I don't think he's funny. And he shows up on Fox Sports 1 a lot. He'll go on with Skip and Shannon, and they give him time, and he just, is a Yankee Knicks fan and Giants fan. So congratulations, you're in New York. Wow, God bless.
You have just buried Michael Rapaport. Does it bother you to know that he's worth $12 million?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Like, again, you step in enough shit, sometimes you come out smelling like a rose. I mean, he's made movies, he's whatever. So that was the only feud I had known about. I guess he and Durant were somewhat friendly. And
I guess, according to Rapaport, again.
Yeah.
I'll read the DMs because they bear reading. I'm not going to read them verbatim because I'm not going to try to get us demonetized with all the swearing and terrible words that went on. But I'll read some of it. I'll pick and choose my spots. So for some bizarre reason, Rapaport decided to send the receipts of these DMs between him and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, a known Twitter-holic, also a known very, very sensitive person who will not let any snipe at him go unresponded to. So here's how the DMs start. It was a post, actually, that Michael Rapaport on the 22nd of December put out saying, KD seemed deeply in his feelings with the NBA on TNT crew after the game. Damn it, he's super sensitive about everything. Don't do the interview. That is a response to, I think we actually talked about it at the time, Sap. It was one of the first games back. It may have been the first game back of the NBA season. And the Nets had won the game. Durant was the guy that TNT decided to interview because it was his first game back in 2 years. And, they were asking him questions. He was just giving one-word answers. And you could see that it was very uncomfortable. He didn't want to answer the questions. He doesn't like Charles Barkley. We know this. And it was just a weird interview. So that's what that was in response to. Durant decided to, in response to that, direct message Michael Rapaport and say, or text him and just say, "You a bitch." Okay. Rapaport responded days later saying, "Just do the bleeping interview. And if you're upset about something they've said, say something. Up there looking like you were going to cry and bleep." And then Durant, again, never going to let somebody get the last word, said, "I did the interview, you blankhead. Tell your baby daddy Chuck to be better at his job and frame his questions better. He gave me 2 options for that dumbass question, yes or no." And then Rapaport did an interview where he's saying, "I don't know why they're asking for this idiot's opinion." So he just continued to rip Durant, I believe. And then Durant really unloaded on him. He said, "I've heard it all before, you C-word. Chuck doesn't need you as a security, you pale, pasty, blank, guzzling bitch. I swear I'm going to spit in your face when I see your dirty ass. Bet your life on it. Meet me on West 17th tomorrow at 10. Or better yet, what's your address? 10 a.m. at Catch Steak on the corner. Meet me there." Then he called him a bad word for male genitalia, or female genitalia. Rapaport decided to say, "Go help the kids in Brownsville and Brooklyn and stop being a blanking," again, bad word for female genitalia. Durant said, "You're a bitch for even caring about how I do an interview. All you do is blank suck other men for attention. Trump didn't pay attention to your sorry ass. So now you want to use everybody else to get views and laugh. Your life is a joke. You bleeping pale blank sucker. Go get some sun. It's blanking with your brain. Piece of," you can infer the rest. "Go to Brownsville, help the people, you goofball." Then Durant said, "You go, you clown. Good for you. Nobody gives a bleep. Suck a bleep. I can't wait to tell you all this in person." Then he's mad that he called a lawyer. Durant gets mad at Rapaport for calling a lawyer. That is the extent of it. What is going on here, Sap?
This is middle school, isn't it? I mean, I'm actually, I don't even think it's to the levels of middle school. Maybe what's before middle school, elementary school. And Durant has a way of screwing things up because you want to root for him against Michael Rapaport. At least I want to. But by the end, I'm rooting against both of them.
Right. Well, Durant came over the top here.
Shitheads.
Rapaport was just like, jerking him around, saying, "Yeah, you're being like a baby about this." And then he was like, then Durant, the NBA might have a problem with this because it's so homophobic. Over the top homophobic.
And there's actually racial slurs in there with the pasty white. If the tables were flipped and Rapaport had said about
his career
Durant,
would be
it would be a massive
Rapaport's
problem.
career would be over.
Yeah, so you with whatever's left of it, like I don't even know who he works for. He kind of is an independent.
You told me Fox Sports 1.
Well, yeah, he shows up on with Skip and Shannon, and they prop him up. And Lil Wayne's a big Packers fan, so I like Lil Wayne. But the issue I have with this is, first of all, Durant's not playing, right? He's played 19 games the last 2 years. He obviously appears to be bored. Even when he was playing, he was constantly on social media. The bigger problem, I think, with Durant is, and you don't necessarily see this with, say, LeBron or Tom Brady or adults like that, they don't get involved in this as much or anywhere close to what Durant gets involved with this because they have families. They have, like, other things to do. Does Durant go to his house and just sit there with his cell phone like many of us do and then interact with everybody on Twitter? Like, he's got nothing else to do besides fight with people on Twitter. He's got his burner accounts. He's fighting with, like, high school kids. Like, they're baiting him into a discussion, right? And this is one of the greatest players in the history of the sport. I think he's one of the top 20 players in the history of the sport, the second best player currently playing. You stoop yourself to the level of Michael Rapaport or some kid in high school, just ignore it. But the thing is, I don't like what Michael Rapaport did, because these are DMs or texts. Don't go public with this, because now you look like a rat. And that's not a good place to be in.
He's a huge loser, Michael Rapaport.
Two losers going at it.
But that's sort of his MO, right? Nobody thinks highly of Michael Rapaport. So ultimately, he wins in this situation. People are talking about him. So he did the right thing for his career, I guess, because people are talking about him.
Why would we talk about Michael Rapaport other than he looks like Brian Scalabrine?
That's what Durant's never understood, is that unless he engages, nobody's going to ignore. He's seeing things from middle schoolers and high schoolers that two other people are seeing. If he doesn't respond to it, nobody else is going to see or care. The funniest thing to me with the language and stuff like that and the homophobia is he has if you look at his tattoos, they're all like Psalms and Christian tattoos. It's like,
right.
I can't. But that's not a Durant thing. That's a everybody thing. He has responded and said, "I'm sorry that people had to see the language I used." That's about as sorry as he is. It's ridiculous that he's so sensitive, and now he's trying to play it off like, oh, we were just joking around. Me and Mike talk crazier than this. We're joking around and stuff, but like no one believes that, because like you said this before. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Durant has a history of doing this. He has a history of burner accounts. He has a history of engaging with people on his own account. He can't help himself. And what's so crazy to me, Sap, and what I just don't understand is that this is a guy who has accomplished so much and is considered already one of the greatest players in NBA history. Why is he so sensitive?
He's sensitive to the fact that he's never going to measure up to LeBron James, right? So that was his goal, to equal or surpass LeBron James. It ain't going to happen, whether on the court or off the court. It's just not going to happen. So he's not comfortable not being the best player. And then, of course, when he went to Golden State, won back-to-back titles, joining a super team, everybody pushed back on him. So, he's got 2 championships, 2 finals MVPs, but a lot of people put an asterisk next to those 2 championships, right? Because as we've said before, not all championships are the same. No. LeBron's championship in Cleveland feels like it counts for more than one, because they came back from 3 games to 1 down.
Of course, yeah.
Doing it in a city.
To really earn. Yeah, the Warriors, some of them were they were just ripping through.
It looked like an exhibition game at some point. So it's almost like, he went and joined a 73-win team to win a championship. Then he won another championship and probably would have won a third if he and Clay didn't get hurt. So he's never been loved. Even when he was in Golden State, that was Steph Curry's team. That's Steph Curry's team, because Steph was, drafted by the Warriors. He set the culture, and Steph was such a good leader that he was able to get out of the way and let Durant be the guy at times. He
was beloved and probably the most popular player in the NBA when he was in Oklahoma City, because LeBron had at that time done the decision and everybody was mad at him. And they were a team trying to knock off that Warriors team. That was, again, nobody really hated the Warriors at that point in time either, because they were built organically. And I think there was a sense of Durant could really, they made the finals already with that team, and they brought the Warriors to 7 games. They could win. He could break through with that team. So why not try to do that? And then it's just been all downhill for his relationship with fans since he left the Thunder. And this year could have been good too, but then they added James Harden and they became the enemy of everybody. So it's just never going to happen for him. But yes, he's never going to measure up to LeBron James, but he's a guy who's won an MVP award. He's a guy who's won 2 titles. He's a guy who's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He has, hundreds of millions of dollars, a shoe deal. Why can't he just be happy? Why? Not even that. Why can't he just refrain from engaging with everybody who says anything nasty about him on Twitter? It's just like, again, and people will push back and say, well, if you're in his shoes, maybe you'd feel different. I know for a fact I wouldn't. When I was on EEI and I would do on-air stuff for them and people would write nasty stuff to me, I wouldn't give 2 shits, because I was where I wanted to be and doing stuff that I wanted to be doing. I don't care what their opinions are.
But Jet, here's the thing. Oftentimes money and power makes you more of who you are. He's insecure. And there are a ton of insecure people in this world, whether they're the most successful at what they do or not. So even though he's made a ton of money, he's accomplished a lot, all of that makes him even more insecure. And, I think when he was in Oklahoma City, he got very frustrated with Russell Westbrook because there were times, many of those years, Westbrook was actually taking more shots than Durant, which makes no sense to me. So I'm sure he got frustrated. And then when they blew that 3-1 lead to Golden State in the 2016 Western Conference Finals, I think he just checked out at that point, that I can't win with this guy. Ends up going to Golden State, and the rest is history. Remember when he gave his MVP speech with his mom there? That was one of the most touching speeches I've ever seen.
And whether it was
getting into a Hall of Fame or winning an MVP. Remember, I think it was the same summer when LeBron had the decision to go play in Miami and everybody was railing against LeBron. I think a few months later, or maybe it was even sooner, Durant re-upped with Oklahoma City, and he did it with a tweet. Staying in Oklahoma City, that was it. And it was like, wow, this guy's really handling everything differently than LeBron. And now I think LeBron is certainly the more respected player and has done so much off the court. And Durant's done a lot off the court too. Durant's put a lot of money out there, to help with education. He did so much in Oklahoma City, as did Russell Westbrook. So he's
become a punchline, Sap. He's become a punchline because everybody knows he's so sensitive.
Does he want to be the heel now? And he's not cut out to be? Like, no, I think Jordan and Kobe liked being the man in the black hat, right? They were very comfortable going into a visiting arena, having people booing at them and rooting against them, and them tearing your heart out. Barry Bonds loved playing in opposing ballparks with 55,000 people booing him. He said, "This is so cool."
Tom Brady's done it for most of his career.
Tom Brady does it too. Some guys don't like that. I don't think LeBron.
I don't think Durant likes it. I don't think Durant likes it either.
I don't think LeBron likes it either.
He's not leaning into it. Durant's not leaning into it because if he was, he wouldn't care with what people were saying about him because he can look at his accomplishments and stats and be like, if this guy on Twitter who's living in his mom's basement or is a high school senior saying I suck, I've won an MVP award, 2 finals. Look at my stats. I don't suck. How can you be so insecure to when people are ripping? Because a lot of these people, this Rapaport thing is calling him a baby, which he obviously he is. But the other stuff that he gets engaged on are like people criticizing his game. How can he be insecure in his game? He doesn't get enough praise and he hasn't accomplished enough where his game can speak for himself. He doesn't have to defend his game, but he can't help himself.
Yeah, because there's really no critique of his game. I mean, could he be a better rebounder, passer, defender, whatever? But
people throw it out there just to get at him now because they know he'll see it.
Well, can you picture, like, he's scrutinized, but LeBron's scrutinized on steroids, right? I mean, LeBron's the most scrutinized athlete in the country. You either love him or hate him. I mean, do you think LeBron is watching Skip Bayless all morning when Skip is just throwing out so much bullshit? I think he just probably has other things to do. If that was the case, Durant would be watching. I think
early in his career, probably, but now I don't think he cares.
Finally grew up. He grew up because LeBron has a lot of other interests, right? He's married. He's got 3 kids. He's got multiple businesses. He's a busy guy, right? So he doesn't have time to sit and get on social media and fight with people who follow
And again,
him.
he's accomplished so much, Sap. I think he at the point is like, what's Skip Bayless gonna say? It's the same thing as like, what's the guy who keeps calling Tom Brady the luckiest player of all time? I'm forgetting
he's on Fox
Sports
his name.
1. Yeah, but anyways, it's like Tom Brady's not going to pay attention to that because it's ridiculous.
Rob Parker calls him the LOAT.
So it's like,
luckiest of all time.
When a guy like Tom Brady or LeBron James, and Kevin Durant's not that level, but he's still a level where you've accomplished so much in your career at this point. When people just come at you, you should just laugh it off. Brady and LeBron don't pay attention to that stuff anymore because it's stupid. It's not an argument. No one takes it seriously. Like if somebody is going to say, Kevin Durant's not that great of a basketball player, no one actually takes that seriously except for Kevin Durant.
No. Right. Yeah. It's like he doesn't have to prove anything.
That's what's amazing to me. He's the only person on the planet who takes it seriously and like an actual slight.
He does.
It's no one realizes. It's the guy who doesn't realize that the joke is on him. He's defending himself from all these imaginary armies. Yeah,
exactly. It's almost, what's the term you use? It's a straw man argument, right? Like they're just throwing out nonsense that makes no sense. No one believes what they're saying, but it's almost like Durant's being bullied on Twitter, and rather than ignore it, he feeds into it. And that Adam Silver talked about this last year during the shutdown, that he doesn't understand, and he wants to find out why his players are so unhappy. He goes, these are young guys making plenty of money, got great brands, wildly popular, and so many of the guys are unhappy. And he thinks a lot of it has to do with social media, that they're so connected to social media that, it kind of sets them off. Now, Kawhi Leonard is kind of the other end of the spectrum, which I don't even know if Kawhi has a cell phone, but he's, not really listening to what anyone says. He's kind of focused on his own little thing. He doesn't really, what is his brand? The Claw. And he's got, what sneakers does he sell? New Balance. Yeah. I mean, he was going to be the king of LA till LeBron won another title. But that's the other end of the spectrum, is like, I really don't care what Kawhi took a year off, essentially.
I don't think Kawhi has
hurt.
a TV. Yeah.
I know Kawhi, they were saying he was driving like a pickup truck. I mean, Kawhi still wears, braids or dreadlocks. I mean, he's like a little behind the times, right? So I think that he's a completely different guy than Durant, who seems to hear everything. He's got rabbit ears.
Completely.
Everything.
But the thing is, like, Sep, with these guys, when you're this level of professional athlete, and you got to have a lot of self-confidence.
Yeah.
But this is like is like a complete lack of self-confidence. That's why I can't rationalize it. Like, to get to this point, you need to be confident in your abilities. If you're second guessing your shot making, your shot taking, your playmaking, you'll never make it in the NBA. He's made it, as well as maybe you can list 30 people who've made it better than Durant at this point in his career. History of planet Earth.
Yeah. No, I think he's a top 20 player.
And then on social media, he has no self-confidence. It's bizarre. It doesn't make it doesn't make sense to me, Sap.
It doesn't make sense, but there are some athletes, I think a lot of them do have insecurities, but they channel it in the right direction.
Like does he not know how good he is at basketball?
Yeah, I mean, maybe no one told him it, but all he has to do is maybe watch some of his highlights and go, damn, I'm pretty good. I'm 7 feet tall and I can score from anywhere, within 40 feet of the basket. Like Kobe and Jordan had this massive chip on their shoulder, but they fueled it through anger to beat you. I think Brady does the same thing, but I also think that Kobe, Jordan, and Brady were sociopaths are sociopaths.
They're psychos.
There's something a little bit different than them than the average person. Durant's probably a really nice guy. He's probably good with his friends. And players seem to like him, right? They all go to him. I mean, Kyrie loves playing with him. Harden wanted to play with him. He seems like a good kid. He respects his mom, and that, like I said, that MVP.
No, he said as much. He's like, I'm a normal guy. I like Twitter and video games.
He likes video games.
About basketball and social media, but like,
stay away. But you know what? He can't help himself. It's unfortunate.
And like Rapaport again, didn't the initial thing? What he said, it's like everybody was saying that about Durant. Like, that's a lame answer. But Durant's response to it being a lame answer is, so what? That's how I felt. I didn't want to answer the question. Not go on a tirade calling people homophobic slurs. And
no, that's not good.
Like, that shouldn't be the response.
I mean,
because at this point, he's not a kid anymore. He's in his 30s. He's an adult.
Yeah. He's accomplished a lot. I mean, look, Kobe got fined for screaming out homophobic slurs at an official years ago.
Yes. Yep.
I don't think anything's going to happen here because, it was kind of supposed to be done in the privacy of DMs or text. But Donald Sterling lost his team, rightfully so, but lost his team by what he was saying, what was supposed to be a private conversation. So that's
you should assume nothing is private if you're a professional athlete now.
Not anymore, or any of us. Nothing.
Look, I mean,
just don't say anything.
And then the other spectrum, with Durant didn't do anything that was illegal. He just looks like a baby. But like with Deshaun Watson, what you're seeing right now probably is like, I mean, that stuff is not private. You might DM somebody privately. It can be used against you in a court of law. It's not actually private. It's just under a privacy setting on your computer. So
exactly.
Advice for anybody in a professional setting: don't assume anything's private. If you're DMing somebody on Twitter, don't assume that's private. Don't say something you wouldn't say to them normally. It's just this stuff on social media is not private. Anybody has access to it. It doesn't take
Absolutely.
much.
No, and stay away, Kevin. And I think once he gets back to playing, maybe it will rectify some of this.
He's not going to learn. This will come up again, Sep. Before his career's over, this will happen multiple more times.
Because players have idle time, even while they're playing, right? They're on the road, they're in their hotel room, whatever the case may be. Everybody's social distancing, so they're on their own. And look, as long as he has a cell phone with him, which we all have at all times, he's going to engage, and that's not good.
Yeah, so it just was another example of, I think, heightening people's perception of Kevin Durant, that he's immature and that he's a baby and just extremely sensitive, and making the Nets more and more unlikable by the day, to a point where people are going to be. I know the Lakers are the most popular team in the NBA, but typically the team that's trying to repeat doesn't get rooted for in the playoffs or in the championship. More people will end up rooting for the Lakers than the Nets this year because
absolutely.
They might end up being the underdogs in that series in terms of what Vegas looks at it with.
Probably, yeah.
So
probably
somebody who's dealing with this stuff a little bit better, Sap, is Durant's former teammate in Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook, who also hears the noise and heard some noise recently from Stephen A. Smith, who's one of those people who throws things out there. He is maybe a little bit more tactful than Michael Rapaport and probably knows
more talented,
more about what he's talking about.
I like Stephen A. because he's covered the league for years. I know he's the face of ESPN along with Mike Greenberg and probably Scott Van Pelt. I like Stephen A. Smith. He does his job really well. And again, those shows, whether it be on ESPN or Fox Sports 1, they're on for 2.5, 3 hours. They have to say things. They can't just sit there and go, wow, that was a great game by Russell Westbrook last night. Yet another triple-double.
Yeah. So Stephen A. more or less said, okay, Westbrook, triple-double. You're playing really good basketball right now. You're still not winning. Where's your rings? What have you done for me, lately? And do I have that more or less correct, Sap, what
Pretty
Stephen
much,
A. said there?
Yeah, I want to hear about your chip. And it kind of set Russell off, but Russell handled it a lot bebetter than Kevin Durant because he actually spoke about it.
Yeah, instead of what Kevin Durant did, Westbrook had a lengthy statement. I think they were asking him about it, and he went on for about 2 minutes. I don't want to read the whole thing. But more or less what he said is, listen, I'm happy. Quote, I was a champion once I made it to the NBA. I grew up in the streets. I don't have to be an NBA champion. My legacy is what I do off the floor, how many people I'm able to impact and inspire along my journey. And he went on to, just basically espouse that and say how it's unfair that a lot of guys, especially he was mentioning college guys who are being talked about right now because of the tournaments going on, who guys like Stephen A. Smith have never known or met or talked to, and they're spending a large portion of their nationally televised show speculating about them and what kind of person they are and what kind of player they will be, and sort of the whole nature of the media-player relationship. And I think Westbrook was really eloquent and made some great points about it. And I think that Westbrook understands Stephen A. Smith's role and doesn't begrudge him what he's doing, but is saying that, that stuff doesn't bother me because I feel like we were just talking about Durant. He feels a lot of self-confidence and he has no reason to not. If his career ended tomorrow, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. He's won an MVP award. He's been to the NBA Finals. He's averaged multiple triple doubles. He's one of the most popular players in the league, regardless of what you think about him. His jersey sale is always one of the top jerseys on the market. So he's saying, listen, I've already won. And I think that's a really healthy attitude to have because some people like Kevin Durant can't take any criticism, even though look at where he is now versus when he was growing up in Baltimore. And Russell Westbrook was growing up in LA. And he says, look at where I am now. Well, Stephen A. Smith can't say anything that's going to bother me. I feel very happy about it. So it's just a complete difference in terms of how they respond to stuff like that.
Well, because I think Westbrook by nature is aggressive. So I think he takes things head on. But he handled this really well by saying, look, I haven't won a championship, but, I've made money. Look where I came from. Look where I'm at. I can provide generational wealth for my family. These young guys that are coming through the system, if they're high draft choices, they can do the same. We're champions that way. No, we haven't won a championship in the NBA, but there's a lot of great players that didn't win a championship in the NBA. Look, Elgin Baylor died a couple of weeks ago. I think he's the greatest player to not have an NBA championship. Does that make him less of a player? Hell no. Barkley and Karl Malone and Patrick Ewing are probably the three most recent players that have retired that didn't win a championship. And right now you got Westbrook and Harden are probably the two best players in the league, or at least for a period of time, that haven't won a championship. But I think their lives are pretty good. Their lives are pretty good. They're happy where they're at. And I know Westbrook was very charitable when he was in Oklahoma City. And the one thing with him, he's going to bust his ass every night. You're going to get 100% effort from him. So if you're a fan and you pay $125,
he's got a cute kid too. He's happy. He's a family guy.
He's wildly popular. His sneakers sell. He's got a great brand. Has he won a championship? No. I mean, how many times did he really get close? They went there once in the finals, and they lost to Miami, which was a better team. And they did have the 3-1 lead over Golden State in 2016, and he played like crap in games 5, 6, and 7. But so did Kevin Durant. So they both could share some of that blame. But Westbrook, he doesn't speak often, but when he speaks, I think you have to listen, because he's a serious guy. I mean, we can admit to that. He's a very serious guy.
Yeah.
And I was kind of happy with what he had to say. But I think the part with Stephen A. Smith, I hope he understands that's kind of Stephen A. Smith's job.
I think he does, because he wasn't completely blasting him and calling him
not at all.
So I think he
Durant
gets it.
Durant would have went in a completely different direction and called whatever. And like with Charles Barkley, doesn't like Barkley, so he gives the one-word answers. Draymond Green and Barkley have had their problems, but you remember when Draymond Green was on there? They had good back and forth, because Draymond Green actually is someone that can kind of think on his feet and is I think, going to be fantastic on TV when he retires.
Yeah, I think that it's, Westbrook basically had a really eloquent 2-minute answer saying, I don't really care what Stephen A. Smith has to say.
Right, yeah.
It's been more or less what he did.
I'm comfortable with who I am.
Which I think for a lot of athletes, I think that that's probably how they feel too, is, I grew up poor, or I grew up not wealthy. I made the NBA. I'm just so happy to be here. I was just watching this show on Netflix called Last Chance U about East Los Angeles Community College, the basketball team there. And these guys are trying to get to Division I programs. And that's their dream, just getting to a scholarship for Division I, and where they came from. And that's, oh my God, if I could just get this scholarship to a Division I school that you've never even heard of before, their dreams would come true. And that's true. And these guys have made it to the NBA and are making money. I think they really could care less about what Stephen A. Smith says about them. So
yeah, they've made hundreds of millions of dollars.
I do think Westbrook is probably speaking for a large portion of, and there's guys like Durant, plenty of guys like Durant too, who are sensitive, but I do think a lot of them are just so happy to be there and just so happy to be putting on an NBA jersey, now playing in front of fans again and getting to have thousands of people cheer for you or even cheer against you. That's an awesome feeling. I think
at some point it's a dream come true, right? I mean, when you're 8 years old, you want to be
and you're
there.
Like Stephen A. Smith, someone's talking about me on TV. I don't care what they have to say. I mean, unless they're talking about something that in my personal life and that's crossing a boundary, like then they're ragging on my game. So what? I could do. Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant would beat Stephen A. Smith in a game of one-on-one every time until they could age 50 years today, and Stephen A. Smith could be the same age. They beat him when they were 100 years old. So I think that, Westbrook obviously handled this a lot better. And I think that it's interesting to look at these two different types of responses and say, well, what do you think is the more common feeling amongst players? Is it, I'm so happy that I've gotten out of this bad economic situation I was in, I'm living my dreams, and no one can really bring me down, I'm already a champion, like Westbrook said? Or is it Kevin Durant, who is miserable about everything?
I think there's more players. Well, it depends too. I think when you look at the superstars, and Adam Silver did talk about this, that a lot of the great players don't seem happy, which is kind of perplexing. But again, I don't know what they go through on a daily basis. And again,
you said this before, Sep. The European players seem to be the happiest guys in the league.
They get into the NBA. They're comfortable staying with the same franchise. Like, look at Giannis. If Giannis had been
he's happy as a clam.
States, but if that same player who came through AAU and played 1 year of college would have gotten his ass out of Milwaukee as quickly as he could. But the foreign players, it goes all the way back to Dirk Nowitzki, they really appreciate that some team took a chance on them. And to the point where, like, they show loyalty to that particular team, whereas more of the players now are like, I'm going whenever I want. I mean, LeBron set the tone for that. He's made the league so mobile. I mean, like I said,
it's like,
he may go to one other place.
Look at Giannis, and he hasn't won a championship. He's won 2 MVPs, and he's come up short in the postseason, and people criticize his game all the time. He doesn't seem to care at all. Again, like I said, he's happy as a clam. He's got a friendly relationship with the media. Yep. He's playing with his brother. His other brother is in the NBA. He said last night the Lakers played the Bucks, so all 3 Antetokounmpo brothers were on the court at the same time. He said, this is the biggest accomplishment, best thing that's ever happened in my life. Not the MVPs, not winning in the playoffs. This right here. And you could tell he's being honest about it.
they grew up in Greece, poor, selling, like watches in the open markets. So they came from absolutely nothing, and now they're all making a ton of money. Obviously, Giannis more than his brothers. He's probably wakes up and pinches himself every day. But I think Durant, I'm not going to say he was spoiled, but he was, the top recruit. He was the second pick in the draft, and he was a star right away. So I think sometimes they get bogged down by that. In the prior podcast, we talked about Jason Tatum. I don't think Jason Tatum looks like he's having a blast out there.
No, he looks miserable. Completely
He looks miserable as well. So it's like, what's the problem here? Maybe the foreign players, because they don't come with the same publicity as the American players.
Maybe.
Luka's maybe a little bit different because we kind of heard about Luka when he was 16 playing professional basketball. But Luka looks like he's having a blast out there. That's why I think Zion is going to be the face of the NBA, because he's an American player.
Or maybe he'll be miserable at some point.
I don't think so. He seems to have the personality where he's having a blast. I think if he can get away from Stan Van Gundy, maybe he won't become miserable, because that's just a bad matchup in New Orleans. Like, I have no clue why they hired Stan Van Gundy,
but like you said
as
about
the coach. But Zion
Durant,
has that personality.
You said that people, when he was in Oklahoma City and he sent out that tweet, everybody like, oh, this guy gets it. He seems like he's having a blast. So it changes.
It does change. But again, I think more power, accomplishments, and money make you more of who you are. And he's at his core, he's insecure, and it's unfortunate because he's so damn good.
Embiid, another guy, looks like he's having a blast every time he plays.
Some say too much of a blast, like he doesn't take it seriously enough. But he's a personality.
Jokic has fun all the time. You see him skipping around the court the other day in warm-ups. I'm drafting an all-European team. I don't want to deal with these guys. The other guys are pain in the ass. Kevin, why should you have to coddle Kevin Durant and say, hey, don't listen to what that 12-year-old's saying on Twitter? I mean,
it could be the English-speaking countries are bad too, because technically Kyrie was born in Australia. He was born in Australia, and Ben Simmons as well. And Kyrie, I get the vibe with Kyrie that he's like a tortured artist out there. Yeah. His game is his game is fantastic to watch, whether you like the guy or not. Ben Simmons, also from Australia, he doesn't look like he's very happy either. But
no, I think he actually doesn't love basketball. I think it might be for a different reason. Really
good at it, yeah. That's why we both like LaMelo Ball a lot, because he's having a blast out there, more so than his brother Lonzo, who I think so much pressure was on Lonzo because he was the
oldest
first from the family, oldest child, went to the Lakers, and Magic saying, yeah, his number's going to be up in the Raptors someday, and that's a lot of pressure to put on.
Way too much.
LaMelo goes to Charlotte as the third pick, and you're like, well, he's not going to do much. And, until he got hurt, he was the runaway choice to be league rookie of the year. So he seems to have fun. I think that's where the face of the franchise, the face of the league has to be. There's different ways you can paint this. Like Jordan was Jordan. I mean, come on. It's like that he broke the mold, but like Magic looked like he was having a lot of fun, but Bird was this intense guy, and that both worked for both of them. Dr. J was poetry in motion. LeBron kind of rolls a lot of this up into one.
It's impossible to compare these guys, though, because there was no social media in the 80s.
Right. I mean,
prior to 2008.
Yeah.
It really wasn't a factor.
And these young players grew up with this. So that's what they know.
It's directly tied to it, Sep.
Of course it is. Absolutely. I mean, Jordan doesn't even have a Twitter account. Right, he doesn't do it. I don't think Magic.
No, it's just the Jordan Brand Twitter account. Yeah, he doesn't have one. No, Magic's Twitter is the most
comical.
What do you say? Salad or egg salad? What's your expression? Something over
chicken
toast.
Over salad.
Grilled chicken over salad. Yeah, that's Magic Johnson's Twitter.
No,
it's not insightful.
It's almost like a column Larry King used to have in USA Today, and goes, what's great on a summer day is lemon slush. It's like, no shit, like all obvious
Magic
stuff.
Johnson's tweet. The Lakers just won their 17th championship.
Wow, thank you, Magic. I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, I'm assuming if you follow Magic on Twitter, you probably watched them win that 17th championship. So, but I still love Magic. But I don't think Bird's on Twitter. Bill Russell is, which is pretty cool.
Bird doesn't have a computer.
He doesn't. He probably doesn't get cable either. But he's too cheap. But I think a lot of these guys, it's in some ways it's like they're so successful, but they don't seem to be generally happy. And again, the commissioner knows this. So I think, and since he's the best commissioner in sports, Adam Silver, I think that he's going to try to work to fix this, but that seems to be a much more difficult problem to fix.
Here's my idea.
We're human beings.
Quick fix. The NBA creates a lot of burner accounts, but they're positivity burner accounts.
I like that.
Accounts that just tweet very nice things about their players. Wow, that Kevin Durant's something, isn't he? Just, have a server farm in India or Bangladesh where all they do all day is tweet very nice things about NBA players.
I like that.
Problem solved. All right, Sap, let's end the show with the next generation of unhappy players. In the Final Four right now, we've got Houston versus Baylor in an all-Texas matchup. Kendrick Perkins, very happy about that. And then Gonzaga versus UCLA in the matchup nobody saw coming with the overall 1 seed against an 11 seed who was the first 4. So an interesting Final Four because you have a 2 1 seeds, a 2 seed, and then the 11 seed. I'm assuming you didn't have UCLA in your bracket in the Final Four.
No, I had them losing to Michigan State in a play-in game because actually, if there's one team I generally root for,
it was an overtime
Michigan
game.
State. They did lose in overtime. They were down double digits at halftime, so they're in there somehow. They're the miracle team. Look, Gonzaga is going to try to become the first team since the 76 Hoosiers to go undefeated through the regular season and postseason, and I think they're going to do it. Jet, they're 30-0 this year.
Yeah.
They've won 29 of those 30 games by double digits.
Yeah,
they've had one game where they haven't won by double digits. USC is a pretty good team, right, with Evan Mobley, who's going to be a top 3 or
beat
top
Oregon
4
pretty
pick.
good.
They destroyed them, 85-66.
They crushed Kansas, too.
They've crushed everybody. So,
and then, I'm saying USC crushed Kansas,
USC
and then Gonzaga crushed USC. Yeah.
And that game was over. It was 25-10 about 8 minutes into it. So I would think Gonzaga is going to seal the deal. The only team that I think can give them some problems would be Baylor because they have a really good backcourt. And the key to Gonzaga is Jalen Suggs, who I absolutely love. I mean, if the Celtics could ever get him, which is not going to be the case, unless they get into the lottery and win it somehow or tank and get a high pick, and I think he'd be a great leader for them. The thing I like about Suggs is he's was heavily recruited as a quarterback by Alabama and Ohio State. He was football player of the year and basketball player of the year, Mr. Basketball in the state of Minnesota. He's got those leadership qualities that you can't really teach. He's a quarterback, so he kind of has all of that. Corey Kispert's a guy who I think is going to be like a Kyle Korver type. Jalen Suggs reminds me a little bit of Jason Kidd, like a really hard-nosed defender, going to get better as a shooter, excellent passer. Baylor's got some guards. I know Davion Mitchell is probably someone you like because he's got a little bit of Marcus Smart in him. He's a really good defender. The only way I think Baylor's going to beat Houston and play Gonzaga in the championship, if their guards can really choke down on Suggs, then maybe that holds that Gonzaga offense down. But to beat Gonzaga, you have to score 80 points. They're cracking 80. Right?
By my count, Gonzaga has 4 guys who are going to be drafted in the NBA. Suggs, Kispert, Ayayi, and I think it's Drew Timme. I'm not sure how you pronounce
the guy with
his
the porn mustache.
Yeah. Typically, teams that have that much NBA talent, it's hard to beat them. I mean, those teams win the tournament a lot of the time.
And they're not all freshmen either. And Kentucky will roll out 6 freshmen.
They're not all freshmen. No, Kispert's a senior. Yeah. And Ayayi is a junior. Suggs is a freshman. Yeah. Mark Few is one of the best coaches in the country.
By far.
The only pushback I would give for Gonzaga, not in terms of where they are this season, which I think is pretty head and shoulders the favorite to win and the best team in the country, is that they do play in the WAC or the Western Athletic Conference, or is it the WC? I forget what it is. WCC, West Coast Conference. They shouldn't be playing in that anymore because they are constantly recruiting top 5 classes, top 10 classes, and they're just pounding their competition, and that's resulting in a top seed every time. So it's not really super fair what they're doing. They should be playing in the Pac-12. They should just add them, and they should be playing the same conferences: Oregon, Washington, USC, Colorado. All those teams. That's I think what really should happen. But meanwhile, this formula has worked really well for them. They ripped through their conference typically, except for the 1 year Patty Mills was at St. Mary's, and they get a high seed, but they've disappointed. Like they've gone to the Final Four before, or they've gone to the Elite Eight, and they've come up short. They've had really good teams in the past. This team looks like by far the best one.
They played in the national championship game in 2017. North Carolina beat them in the championship game. It's the only time they went. This team does look special, again, because it's got experience, right? And that helps. You saw what like Villanova did in winning 2 championships in a 3-year span where they had some upperclassmen. And that can work. Kentucky's model of, freshmen, that can work as well. Although that's
like playing roulette,
team,
right?
But
you could hit.
The 2015 team, as good as it was and was undefeated, going into the 2015 Final Four, we all thought Kentucky was going to seal the deal and be the first undefeated team since the 76 Hoosiers.
They were
feel
insanely
the same way
loaded.
About Gonzaga. They were loaded. I mean, you had was Booker on that team to go along with Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, you got 2 all-stars in the NBA now. So, but this team seems like it's so well constructed because of that experience. Their offense is beautiful to watch. I mean, after watching the Celtics with Jason Tatum playing iso ball and then watching Gonzaga with cuts and intricate passes and backdoors, that's really exciting to watch. And
I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked
them.
If they lose. I'd be genuinely shocked.
Too. I mean, they're a 14-point favorite.
Well, it's
over UCLA.
Here's the makings of a championship team. They have every part of it. They have experience, top end talent with Suggs is a top end draft pick, a really good experienced head coach, depth, guys who have been in the tournament before.
Yep,
they have everything that you could want. By the way, that Kentucky team, Devin Booker, Willie Cauley-Stein, the Harrison twins, Aaron and Andrew, both are in the NBA. Trey Lyles, Karl Anthony Towns. That is a pretty good team.
I think Booker was coming off the bench, Jet. I don't know if he started for them.
Yeah, I think he was coming off the bench.
Coming off the bench.
And then they had a couple of guys too, like Dakari Johnson, who did play in the NBA. Alex Poitras did play in the NBA. It's like guys who were in the NBA for a cup of coffee, but they were also on the team.
They were like the 8th and 9th guys. I mean,
they were. That was a ridiculous team.
You don't remember the 91 UNLV Running Rebels because you were 2 at the time, but I'm sure that's a team you would have loved because the team with attitude and played great defense. You had Larry Johnson, Stacey Augmon, Greg Anthony. They went undefeated, got to the Final Four, and lost to Duke in the national semifinal. A year after they destroyed Duke in the national championship game, everyone thought that UNLV was going to win. But this team, I think, is almost unbeatable, especially now where there aren't many teams with upperclassmen, and they have them. I mean, Kispert's a knockdown three-point shooter. Suggs is a great leader. He's going to find a way to beat you.
I'll tell you how you beat them, Sap, is that, you can never count out the one-game elimination factor of it.
Right.
You can have it.
And
Doc Rivers has said this a million times. Basketball, it's a make-miss sport. He says it's a make-miss league. With the NBA, college, it's the same formula. It's sometimes you're just off and you're not hitting your shots.
And they're college kids. They're not pros.
And they're college kids. If Baylor can beat them if they hit their threes, that's how you could beat.
Right.
If you have to knock down your threes, it's an insane clip to beat them. And it's possible to do that for one game. If the NCAA tournament was 7-game series, Gonzaga would smoke everybody. And no one would have a chance. But in one game, team gets hot from 3, you can beat them. But I'd be shocked. I mean, we're completely discounting UCLA and Houston here. We've not even talked about, and Houston is extremely well coached too by Kelvin Sampson. UCLA extremely well coached by Mick Cronin.
Yep. And his dad up in the stands
is contractually obligated to show his dad every 2 seconds for any UCLA game.
He's 22 years younger than Sister Jean. So, he's a spring chicken compared to Sister Jean with Loyola Chicago.
But good for UCLA to get there. I mean, that's incredible. First 4 to Final Four.
The last time they made the Final Four was Russell Westbrook and Kevin Love in 2008. And they didn't win the national championship either. Yeah. The thing about Gonzaga, I want to see how they react if they're down. It almost feels like Alabama in college football. Like Alabama was never down. That's why, Mac Jones, everybody loves. Well, he never faced a deficit. How is he going to react to his first game in the NFL when he's down 10 points going into the fourth quarter, which is going to happen? So what is Gonzaga going to do if they're down 8 at halftime? If that's the case. Now, the biggest upset in tournament history, as far as I'm concerned, well, there's 2 of them. NC State beating Houston in 1983. Houston had Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. And NC State had talent, but not to that level. But that was before the shot clock, right? So you could control the pace. Same thing with Villanova beating Georgetown in 85. Control the pace. limit possessions, stay close, get a lead, hold on. There's a shot clock now, and the teams play at a very fast pace. Gonzaga plays at a very fast pace, and Gonzaga's both is good on both ends, Jet. So if they're not hitting threes, they're bringing the defensive effort, right? So I think it's going to be really difficult to beat them. I'm rooting for them because, again, they're a blue blood now, right? Because
would this be the biggest upset in the history of the tournament if UCLA takes them down?
Oh, sure. They're 14.5-point favorites. I mean, UCLA, where they finish in the Pac-12, they lost their last 4 games. They lost their last 3.
Second to last team in. Oregon State won the tournament, the conference tournament. So they weren't getting in otherwise. But UCLA was they were one of the first 4 teams. So they were in the middle of the conference.
UCLA lost their last 3 regular season games, lost their only tournament game in the Pac-12, and it was down double figures to Michigan State. I mean, talk about Cinderella.
Yeah, they were a bubble team.
This would be a huge upset, an enormous upset. The names sound weird, right? UCLA is the gold standard, or it was, but it hasn't been for the last decade. I mean, they've really been.
No, Gonzaga's been the far better program,
without question. So I'm actually rooting for Gonzaga because I'm falling in love with Jalen Suggs. I just like him. I just think he's going to be a fantastic NBA player. He's just someone that I like. I mean, when I see the guy was a quarterback in high school, the point guard, really good student, seems like a mature kid. He's easy to root for. So
right now, Sap,
for Gonzaga.
He's destined to be a Timberwolf, a Piston, or a Rocket, or a Magic. How do you feel about rooting for one of those teams?
Minnesota could be interesting, though, because if you pair him up with Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, he's from Minnesota. I think he'd be the alpha dog on that team, although Anthony Edwards is pretty much an alpha dog,
Anthony
too.
Edwards.
Yeah,
he's calling out other players. Last night he called out RJ Barrett, saying he can't shoot.
That was pretty cool. He goes, well, we were happy he took the last shot. As long as
I like Anthony Edwards. He's growing on me a lot. I like him.
He's got that. That could be a pretty fascinating team because Karl Anthony Towns is not an alpha by any means. He's a kind of like Anthony Davis, really nice kid, but doesn't have that killer mentality. I think if Jalen Suggs goes there, maybe I'm overrating Jalen Suggs. I mean, I'm comparing him to Jason Kidd, for God's sake.
But a lot of people do.
But I think that's the type of player. I think he's a guy who can impact a franchise because of his leadership ability. And again, the football component really impresses me. Quarterbacks tend to have that type of cachet. And I think that would be a good place for him to land. I mean, Detroit, name another team, like you said, Orlando, that would not be good at all. So maybe he gets lucky, goes to Minnesota, and is able to create something there because they do have some talent.
Houston, that's the team I'd least like to go to.
He may go and see if he can play football at Alabama or Ohio State and go by the way of being a quarterback, which is a quick way to make a lot of money. You get that.
So I'm going to say you have Gonzaga over Baylor. I'm going to assume we have the same finals.
Yeah, Baylor.
I had that as my finals. By the way, pat myself on the back. I had that as the finals, but I mean, I think a lot of people did there. The 1 and 2
a lot of
seed
people did.
I
had Illinois. I thought Illinois was going to make it to the Final Four, and they lost to Loyola Chicago in the second round. Baylor's been the second best team this year, right? I mean, they had a little blip because of COVID, so they had a shutdown, but they've been the second best team.
It's incredible that they got into this point because if you know the history of the program, that they basically got the death penalty in the early 2000s because of there was a murder. There was a straight up murder in the Baylor basketball program in the early 2000s.
A lot of strange things in Baylor. The same thing with the football program.
As an awful. Yeah. So it's incredible that they're back to this point because they basically lost all their scholarships and they've rebuilt this team to its. The past couple of years they've been a really good team. Even going back 8-9 years ago, they had guys like Perry Jones, and they've been a solid program. So I think it could be an entertaining game. But if Gonzaga plays up to how good they have played, obviously they haven't lost a game, they should be able to run away with it.
They haven't even been in a game. I mean, again, all their wins but one by double digits. So that's the only way. If Baylor, and again, we're putting Baylor against Gonzaga in the national championship game. If Baylor can keep it close, maybe get a lead into halftime, then you got 15 minutes to sit in your locker.
Got to knock down your threes.
You got to knock down your threes. That's the great equalizer in college basketball. If you're hitting threes and the other team isn't, you can make inroads. And again, if you have a lead at halftime, you put a little doubt into Gonzaga's mind.
Yeah,
but
got it.
I think Gonzaga is the type of team that will come out in the second half and blow doors out because they're that good.
Right. Like I said, top end talent plus guys who have been there before.
Yeah.
In the tournament. Coach. Mark Few, great coach. There's no. If they didn't win, it would be a massive disappointment for the Gonzaga fans and for the program who's looking for their first national championship. All right, Sap, that's going to do it for the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. You can check us out and other great podcasts and articles on fullpresscoverage.com. You can check me and Sap out on Twitter at JohnSap25, at Jet Stryer. We always tweet out the link to the podcast. We're also up on my YouTube channel for the video version of this podcast. It's youtube.com/JetStryer. Those usually come up pretty close to when the podcast comes up, but we tweet those out as well. So make sure you stick around for that and see Sap's really exciting background that he's been working on very, very, very diligently.
From the jail cell.
Yeah, from your jail cell. All right, everybody, we will see you. Enjoy the Final Four. Enjoy your weekend, and we will talk to you early next week. See you, everybody.